Qualifying day at the Red Bull Ring, but it wasn't a good day for Red Bull Racing as it felt almost like old days with McLaren and Ferrari battling it out at the front. We had Lando Norris beating out Charles Leclerc surprisingly with Oscar Piastri in third place after quite an entertaining qualifying session, but a session which will put the other teams on notice after McLaren ended up with a half a second gap like the old days. We're going to go through it all. Ludo van Denderen is here to speak everything through with GPBlog. Let's just talk about this big gap. It was sizable in the end. McLaren were in a league of their own. And Norris looks like he's put Canada right out of his head because he controlled every session he was in this weekend.
Yes, that's true. And you also have to keep in mind that this is a very short track. So if you have half a second difference between the number two, that's huge, really huge. Andrea Stella was asked about that. Why does Lando accelerate here? And he said that he loves this track. He's always good this track. Remember last year, he was fighting with Max for the win. He was here this weekend. Every session he was pretty good. And also the McLaren is, of course, a fantastic car at the moment. So all ingredients for McLaren to have this kind of result today.
It sounds like from the conversations you've been having as well that McLaren obviously know they're good, but every other team seems to know that they're good as well, and teams that will probably have a bit more intel than we have.
Exactly, because we spoke to George Russell and Fernando Alonso after the quali, and both said, yeah, tomorrow you're going to see that the two McLarens will drive into the distance with a huge deficit and will finish this race. And the best position for the others is third place. That's what, for instance, George Russell is aiming for. But Alonso, Leclerc, nobody's thinking we're going to win this race. Impossible.
Looking further down the grid, and it seems weird to say it, but we're going to go quite a bit down the grid. Max Verstappen, the driver you sometimes expect to bring the fight to them, especially at the Red Bull Ring where he's had so much success in the past, talking recently about his problems with journalists. He had to correct, is it Tom Clarkson, with how many victories he's actually had around Austria because of the Styrian Grand Prix confusion. Max Verstappen's a bit of a specialist at this track, but the Red Bull at the moment didn't seem to want to behave, and I think even he must know that there's no chance of him delighting the Verstappen fans which crowd the circuit.
Yeah, indeed. And there were a lot of question marks because they had an upgrade yesterday. Helmut Marko said after the second practice, there was a difference of 0.3 of a second, but it is not 0.3 of a second. It's smaller. But in the end, the difference was 1 second. And that's, of course, huge. And the strange thing is, since yesterday, they did not change the car. So this morning, they woke up and they're off the pace. Probably that's what they're thinking is the weather. It was much warmer here than it was yesterday, and the Red Bull doesn't like that. But also it has a very difficult window, and if you're a little bit out of the window, the car is almost undrivable. You see with Yuki Tsunoda again, I think he was 18th with that same car. He didn't know what the problem was, how to explain what was going on. He doesn't have a clue, because if the car's a little bit out of window, nobody knows how to fix it. And that's just something you saw today. And then even an amazing driver as Max Verstappen has a difference of 1 second to Lando Norris in qualifying. That's huge.
Yeah, I don't think there's much chance of getting on the podium for Max this weekend. Let's talk about what Andrea Stella says. He always has a little press conference after the qualifying, and as things are going at the moment, it seems to be him talking about the successes of the team. But what did he have to say about why McLaren are so good in Austria?
Yeah, perhaps you saw already this weekend that McLaren has some updates, and the upgrades are working. Other teams have problems with their upgrades and they're not working. These are working. It's the last package of this year. There are going to be smaller ones the next few weeks, but in the end, this is the last big package. And yeah, then you see if everything works and everything falls into its place, what it can do. Then everybody is not in their league anymore. It's just unbelievable. So the next few months could be very boring for the neutral fans.
Well, we've got Silverstone coming up, so I'm sure some of the fans will be pretty excited by Lando Norris's prospects for a home race victory. Let's talk a little bit on that Red Bull side of things, because if I was Liam Lawson, I'd be kind of putting my hand up and saying, guys, you really didn't give me a fair chance. Look what I've been able to do at your home circuit by being the fastest Red Bull car in not a Red Bull. This is like a vindication almost for Liam.
Yeah, it was the first time that he was the fastest Red Bull car, and I'm also counting the Racing Bulls cars then. He was even in front of Max. I asked him if it's a little bit revenge, and he didn't want to say it like that because he said, I was only there for two races. This has been a long time ago. But on the other hand, when it was asked again, he said, well, it feels good, and Lawson is getting better and better, getting up to speed, and he's making a name for him for next year because of course, there are the rumors that Yuki will be leaving. Perhaps the Aja will be next to Max. Lindblad is coming in. Lawson has important months this upcoming months, and I think this is pretty good for him to be in the Racing Bull next year again.
Session from him. Going to see how things go. I'm going to again put you on the spot here a little bit, Ludo, because you said it's a very short track, and we're talking about the advantage that McLaren have. Are we looking at potentially a situation where everybody bar the top 4 or 5 could be lapped tomorrow?
That's a good question. No, I don't think so. Because there's something that always happens here, and that's safety cars.
I don't know if you saw Formula 3 and Formula 2, because, safety cars.
Yeah, Formula 2. In Formula 2, there were a few of them. So if this happens, then everything goes back to each other. So I don't know. It can happen, but it looks unrealistic.
We shall see. Yeah, I think you raise a very good point that Austria always does seem to serve up chaos, overtaking, and a jolly good race. Ludo, thank you for everything as ever. We'll speak to you tomorrow after the Grand Prix is finished. And thank you everybody else for watching.